Hi everyone, and welcome to IgniteVST.com. My name is Traj Ten Hardy. I'm here to talk to you guys about the brand new Heat Up 2 expansion, Blackout. For those who don't own Heat Up 2, that's okay. We made a special edition of Blackout to where you get the VST, excluding the factory library and content. So before we get too far, let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about Blackout. Blackout for Heat Up 2 comes with 500 instruments in categories such as strings, pianos, keys, brass, bass, 808s, pads, plucks, effects, and much, much more. See, we made this diverse for everybody, not just one genre. We made it multi-genre, so people who produce trap, hip-hop, dubstep, house, electro, and even cinematics could dive into it and never be uninspired. Every day that you load this, you're able to go to a new preset and make something brand new and completely different than the last project.
Watch me turn up, turn up, watch me turn up, watch me turn up, 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 turn up. Yeah, you know I turn up. Yeah, you know I turn up.
Now that we've introduced you to and talked a little bit about Blackout, let's go ahead and dive into this and show you what this expansion is capable of. So the first instruments that we're going to get into is going to be the strings inside of the Blackout expansion for Heat Up 2. The reason being so, I find it very hard to find strings regardless of the third-party plugin, even if it was made to specialize for just strings, to find good quality studio sounding strings. So let me go ahead and show you. The first one that I'm going to play here is called Kato. It's the preset inside of the instrument selection category for strings. So let's go ahead and play you a few notes. See, really good, really stabby, natural sounding. It's not too much. Plus, it plays really well in the low registry. You don't get the hiss or fuzz like you do with other romplers and stuff. So let's try it with high and the low end. So that's a good one there. That's Kata. So we're still aside of strings in the instrument area of the Blackout expansion for Heat Up 2. I just want to play a few more of these to show you how good quality and how ready to play they are the moment that you download this and plug it in. So let's go ahead and show you Platinum Strings, one of my favorites. you can see that it's a very good string to play regardless of what you want to do. Also, it's almost like it was made ready for cinematic productions. Just gives it that really dark, when you play it in the low register, it gives it that dark, grimy feel. So that's platinum strings. Now that we've touched on some of the strings that are in there, which I mean there's much more that we could go on with just the string section, let's go ahead and check out the brass, since brass is very essential to almost every single genre that's being made right now. That's a really good one. That's called Ballin'. Let's go ahead and check out a few more inside of this as well. Fame. Fame's another one in here that I really like. We spent a lot of time developing the brass as well. It's playable as well again too with whatever genre that you would like to make. More realistic, natural thing instead of being too heavy, instead of just the trap stuff or just the darker. Let's go ahead and check out a few more of these. Octa. We made a lot of these too to kind of pay ode and homage to the older sounding brass stuff as well. Like a lot of old analog boards that a lot of people can't afford and that you can't get anymore. Just kind of like what Octa is for this one. Another one of my favorites is Trap or Die, which you're right, you guessed it. It's very Jeezy-like, very Shorty Red-esque. So let's go ahead and check out this. Or we can do it. That very heavy southern trap feel. Let's go ahead and get into a few more instruments. Next, I'm going to do choirs, and I know you're asking like, oh, you've done strings, brass, choirs, because the orchestral side of things, when it comes to a lot of VSTs, plugins, romplers, stuff like that, it's hard to find good quality for this stuff. So we focus a lot on that as well. Not to mention on all the other instruments too, but this is another one that's in choir. It's called Stacked, one of my favorites. Now it's meant to be just hit. If you hold it down, you'll notice. Plays fast, doesn't have a long resonance or sustain to it in any way. But you can go ahead and change that. You hear a reverb on this, you can go in and change it here inside of the functions, which if you are familiar with HipHop 2, it's very easy to do. They're down here at the bottom. It goes from left to right, reverb, delay, flanger, and chorus. So it's up to you if you want to change them. There is a mode of manipulation for these. Now let's go ahead and show you a few more instruments as well. Now in Blackout for HipHop 2, like I said, it's multi-genre, so it wasn't made for just orchestra type stuff or just hip-hop. It also has a lot of stuff for dubstep, electronic music, or what people like to classify simply as EDM these days. So in here we have bass, and under it says bass smooth, because there are two different types of bass in here. The first bass is definitely centered around the heavier side of electro dance music like dubstep, bass house, things like that. So this one right here you may know and may have heard before because it's familiar, and we tried to get it as close as we could. This one is in bass and it's called Check the Floor. So that's Check the Floor. We're gonna go ahead and go through a few more of these just to show how different and versatile these ones are in the bass section. Demon's Growl. Now don't get weirded out by the names. Some of these are pretty dark to reflect what the bass does in here. You can decide that something is a little too heavy or has too much low end in it. There's the filter on the side up top above the reverb that you can go ahead and select the high pass. Or if you decide you want just the low end, or none of it at all and you just like the preset how it was. We're going to do a few more of these, check these out. Devil's Tongue. That one's one of my favorites too. I know I've said like they're all my favorites, that's why it's hard for me to decide, so I hope they become all your favorites as well. That one's Green Lips. Let's see, we got Haunter's Edgy Love. Which sounds like a very odd book title. This is definitely more of like the bass house, future bass type of sound to it right here. Johnny 5. If you've ever seen Short Circuit the movie, you'll know why I put that one in there. So, shout out to the 80s. You got Kill the Boss. Now remember, with the heavier basses and stuff, a lot of these you could play rhythmically out, or you could do just one shots as well. That's up to you. So the next one we're going to is leads. Now again, you'll notice there's leads and then leads smooth. Lead smooth's different than just regular leads. These leads, they are playable and you can play them out melodically as much as you want, but a lot of these were made to be for the drops of like trap, dubstep, house, electro, whatever you want to use them for. But they were definitely specialized to be towards more of that genre. Let's check out Flash Drum. Kind of reminds me of the X-Files a little bit. This one is called Future Trap Drop, and it's very self-explanatory for those who are making future bass or future trap. This is one key hold down. You can chord it, but the one key hold down is where I believe it sounds best. We got a few in here as well that are pretty much labeled exactly how they sound. You got Hard Trapper. Hella Brills. We got Make Monsters, which is pretty much an ode to the Made Monsters, who's also on the Ignite family. See, a lot of these are definitely made in the lead section for trap and for those heavy drops. So next we're going to get into pads. I really like pads. Pads are almost the essence that are in and behind things. Like even when you don't notice it, a lot of production and stuff is filled with pads, from cinematic to dubstep to house, especially house. Lot of pads are in everything. They're usually that sound that you hear but you don't quite register. But we went a little step further, and everything that's named on here in the preset area is pretty much exactly how that pad sounds. So for instance, this one is 80s movies, because I'm a super big fan of 80s movies and weird synths like that I decided we're missing pads and stuff like that. So I did a few series of stuff like that. So this is 80s movies. I mean, come on, is that not the 80s right there? Picture like every weird 80s sci-fi movie that you've probably watched in the last 10 years. I guarantee you this type of sounds in it. You know when you fall asleep and you leave the menu on and all you hear is that? Exactly, so that's 80s movies. Next we're going to check out the other preset called Count Dracula, which exactly, it's going to be on that very organy, paddy type of thing. I mean, it sounds like you messed up and you went into the wrong castle. And again, remember with these, if you want to take out the high or the low, you're able to do so. Plus all the effects you could take off. You could take off the delay, you could add delay, you could take off the reverb, you could add reverb, chorus, flanger. Not to mention there's also another effects tab in here to where you could add overdrive, distortion, phasers. You could even make some of the sounds wobble if you want to add that feature to it. Let's get into Screamer Ghost, another pad in here that I enjoy. Another very 80s. Every time I play with this one, it reminds me of the beginning of Blade Runner, which some of you may be way too young to know what I'm talking about, but that's alright. So now we're going to check out another instrument section called Stringed. This is different than strings because stringed is all these other instruments that are very ethnic from around the world that we painstakingly took time to capture and make. I mean, they're from everywhere, all sides of the planet. So let's go ahead and check out a few of these. The first one is Samurai, which I understand sounds a little bit dodgy, but you'll be able to understand why. I know you're thinking by hearing that, like, what can I use that in? Actually, nowadays, especially with a lot of like newer trap stuff, EDM trap or whatever you guys want to call it, these type of ethnic sounds are super big, especially for the drops. So that one is Samurai. We have Little India. So you got Little India. Not to mention we got some harps in here as well too. That was actually really terrible playing right there. The sitar. And actually, real quick, let's check out Tropical Heat. Then I'll get into the next one. That's great for that tropical feel like that you have in house and everything right now. You can even turn up the reverb on this, which is what I like to do, with a little bit more delay and ping pong on it, and it gets a really cool sound too as well. Now we're gonna look at the bells. The bells, I use bells in almost everything. I always have, I think I always will, regardless of the genre. It works, bells work in almost every single thing. So let's check out Brisk, one of the presets that's inside bells. So that's Brisk. Let's check out Lil Homie Sleeps, which I understand is a weird title for a preset, but gives you that kind of like West Coasty sound, so you can definitely use that with West Coast hip hop, or for trap as well. So that one's Little Homie Sleeps. Now we're gonna check out Super Nintendos, which you can gather by the name is an ode to the old NES type of bell sound. Now we're going to look at Mallet, which now you understand why it's called Mallet. Pretty much with Mallet you could do anything. You could do the tropical feel, you could do West Coast, you could do it with dubstep, you can make it funky as you want. Mallets is a really fun one to use in bells.